Hello everyone, it's Steve with Aptera Owners Club. So there was this one portion of the Q&A portion of the live webinar, and there seems to be a lot of discussion about it on the various Aptera enthusiast sites.
Is the Aptera 500-pound weight limit because of structural concerns, suspension, or efficiency? How much are you going to limit the weight? We haven't done a lot of testing on this because we need to have the kind of the final validation version of the vehicle, but we've stated kind of 500-pound cargo and passenger capacity. That means two 150-pound passengers and 200 pounds of cargo in the back.
Okay, so this is something that Aptera has stated for a long time that their payload is going to be 500 pounds. But I guess some people are maybe new to Aptera or had not heard this before or didn't register before, and they thought that was really unusual that 500 pounds was the payload capacity because um, as they correctly said, 150 pounds is not really the average weight of an adult in America anymore. If you look at the CDC website, you see that the average weight of a man in the US over the age of 20 is 200 pounds. And the average weight of a woman is 171 pounds. And this is based on data from 2015 to 2018. And as I'll show you later on in this video, that the weight currently in 2023 is probably higher than this. It's higher than the data from 2015 to 2018. So it's probably greater than 200 pounds or 171 pounds. So in either case, the average American adult over the age of 20 is not going to be 150 pounds, whether you're a woman or a man. It's more likely to be, if you average across both genders, you're probably looking at about 185 pounds per person. And then if you do that, let's just round it to 200 pounds just to make the math simpler. If you have two 200-pound people in an Aptera, then you're going to have 100 pounds for cargo, which doesn't leave a lot of room for cargo, admittedly. So I kind of looked at what the payload capacity of other cars, and I think we don't really look at the payload capacity of cars, and so I kind of looked up a few comparable cars for us to look at. So this is my current car, which is a Honda Clarity plug-in hybrid. If you look at this, it says the curb weight. So the curb weight is the weight of the vehicle with fluids. It's about 4,050 pounds, and gross vehicle weight is 4,965 pounds. So about 900 pounds of payload. So 900 pounds of payload. This is a 5-passenger vehicle. If you have 5 200-pound passengers in this vehicle, you're at 1,000 pounds, which is you're already over capacity without even putting anything in the trunk. So there's zero trunk stuff, and you're going to be over capacity. So this idea of having a lot of extra weight, it's not. I'm pretty sure that when you've gone on trips with your vehicle, as long as it's not like a truck or an SUV, because they have much higher payloads, we've probably exceeded the specified maximum weight. And the maximum weight doesn't mean the car doesn't run when you exceed the weight. It just means that you've kind of exceeded its safety specifications. It's not going to brake like it's supposed. It's like it's designed to do. It's not going to brake as fast. It won't handle like the moose test and maneuver around vehicles and do emergency maneuvers within specifications. It will still drive. You'll still be able to steer it. You'll still be able to go, but it's probably not quite as safe as it's designed to be. So I looked at a few other cars. This is a Toyota Corolla. If you look at this, payload capacity of a Toyota Corolla is about 825 pounds, so very similar. Corolla is also a 5-passenger car. You're not going to fit 5 200-pound adults into that thing. This is a Mazda Miata. So Aptera is a 2-passenger vehicle. And so this is a Mazda Miata is a 2-passenger vehicle. If you look at this, curb weight 2341 and gross vehicle weight, so maximum weight is 2745, so 400 pounds. So the payload of a Mazda Miata is 400 pounds. So 100 pounds less than Aptera is going to be designed for. And if you put two 200-pound people in there, you're full. That's it. That's the end for the Miata. Here's a Tesla Model 3. And if you look at Tesla Model 3, it is about 900 pounds. So very similar. So it looks like most 5-passenger sedans smaller to medium-sized sedans are going to be about 900 pounds capacity. Okay, so here's a Porsche Boxster, and that's going to be about a 627-pound payload. So similar to the Aptera for another two-passenger vehicle. This is a Subaru BRZ, which is a four-passenger sports car, and that is going to have a capacity of 800 pounds for the four-passenger sports car. Let's look at this. This is a Subaru Outback. So you guys know Outback is a five-passenger vehicle with a large trunk. It's a station wagon. And this one has a payload of 900 pounds. So you would think that with an Outback, you should be able to put a lot of cargo in the back and put five passengers in. You're just not going to be able to within its specifications. Now, I'm sure that people have gone on camping trips in their Outback with four people that weighed, let's say four people weigh 700 or 800 pounds, and they've put way more than 100 to 200 pounds of cargo in the back of an Outback. And that's been done probably fairly regularly. This is a Nissan Leaf, and this one's also about 900 to 1,000 pounds. Nissan Sentra, we're looking at 900 pounds for that. This is an Integra. This is about 900 pounds. So 900 pounds seems pretty standard for a five-passenger vehicle. Um, this is an 850-pound for the Acura ILX, which is another five-passenger sedan, and then Acura NSX, which is a two-passenger sports car, and this one is going to have a payload of 500 pounds. So that's going to be very similar to the Aptera. So if you see the two-passenger vehicles like the Porsche Boxster, NSX, Mazda Miata, they have payloads ranging from 400 to 600 pounds, which is very similar to the range of the Aptera. I used to have a 2002 Ford Ranger, and I remember once, and I had the lowest end. It was like the single cab, a four-cylinder, um, and it was like a 1,200-pound payload capacity. I went and got a bunch of flooring from Home Depot or Lowe's, I forget which, and I put about 30 boxes of flooring in there, and each box was about 50 pounds. And so that was well over the payload capacity of this vehicle. And you could tell the bottom was kind of, you know, the shocks in the back were kind of riding low. And I drove that thing home. I drove it pretty slow, but I was way out of the safety specs for that vehicle. I was probably a good 700 pounds over its maximum payload, and it was definitely not handling like it normally does. So that's what's been going on. Now, what an interesting thing is that 200 pounds for an adult was based off of this data, which is CDC's anthropomorphic data for Americans. So if you see here, men, the mean for all men 20 and over is 200 pounds. And as you can see, it kind of reaches a maximum around the 30s and 40s and then heads downward. And I think it's because like the really obese people start, the people that live to be like 80 and over are the kind of, quote, somewhat healthier people. Um, and then you can see by race, Asians are going to be the lightest, averaging about 168 pounds, and everyone else is fairly similar. Amongst women, if you look at, so this is women, it's 171 pounds overall, and if you look here, black women are the heaviest, Asian women are the lightest, and then everyone else seems to be fairly similar. And this is obesity trends in the US over time. So they have data going probably back to the 50s, but not state level data, but this is state level data. You look at in the 1990s, and the obesity epidemic or the obesity problem in the United States and much of the Western world started around the 1970s. So in the 1990s, we were already kind of well into it. And if you look at this, there were less than 10% of people that were obese in these states that are in the light blue in here. And then the heavier states were 10 to 14% back in the 90s. And then 10 years later, you see that basically no one is in, there's only one state, Colorado, which was in the 10 to 14% obesity. Everyone else had moved to the 15 to 19% obesity or the 20 to 24% obesity from 1990 to 2000. And then 10 years later, no one is in the blue anymore. The the least amount of obesity is 20 to 24%, and that's in these states in the yellow, and then half the rest most of the country is in this orange, and then half the country is in this red dotted area, which is greater than 30%. That's in 2010. And so then let's look at data since 2010. So they changed the color scheme around because basically no one was going to be 10%. And here the lowest obesity states are 20 to 25%, and that's California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, Montana, New York, a couple of these New England states. And then the wide swaths of the country are 25% to 30%. And then there's 30 to 40% for these southern, central, and southeastern states. That's in 2011. And as you go, you're going to slowly see more of the yellow disappear, and the greens are going to disappear. The green and yellows will disappear, and you'll see a lot more red. Okay, so here we're scrolling by. So here we go. Very few green states, with California staying one of them. And you see Mississippi and West Virginia have made it into it looks like the 35 to 40%. And then you go here, Arkansas has joined them. Utah has dropped out of the green. And then here we are going in 2015. Louisiana has joined the 35 to 40% club. And then here we go. We're going farther in. By 2017, Oklahoma has joined. The only state that's left green at this point is Colorado and Hawaii. And then let's scroll to 2020. Here we go. Colorado and Hawaii still holding on to the green at 20 to 25%. Remember, 20 to 25% would have been the most obese state in the entire country back in 2000. And no state was even close to that in 1990. But only two states are doing that. And you see wide swaths of the country are now in the 30 to 40% range. I mean 35 to 40% range. And here we are in 2021, two states have made it into the 40 to 45% range obesity. So basically half the population is obese. So the average, it's almost become like the average person is obese at this point. And that's West Virginia and Kentucky kind of leading the way. And in 2023, I'm sure this has spread farther. There's only Washington, D.C. remains in the green at this point. Colorado and Hawaii hung on for a while, but in 2021, they moved to the yellow. All right, so this data for the average American male being 200 pounds is probably a little bit outdated. I'm guessing it's about 5 pounds heavier, or maybe 10 pounds heavier at this point. And it's an interesting idea to see why that might be. And if you go look at prevalence of obesity by age group, let's look at uh, when the inflection point happened. And if you look at this graph, the inflection point for a rise in obesity started around the late 70s. It looks like 1976, 1977. There's a steady rise. And I got some like old pictures of beaches, of just random beach shots back from the 1970s. And this is what beaches used to look like in the 1970s. And so if you look here, it's pretty hard to find an obese person. There's just it's hard to find. I can't, it's just a random picture. You see hundreds of people, and you just don't see them. This is La Jolla Pier. back in the 1970s in San Diego, home of Aptera, and you see they're just it's if you go to beaches now, it doesn't look like this. If if any of you guys have been to beaches recently, this is a beach in the UK in the 1970s. So very similar picture across the world. And there's a lot of reasons that this might be the case. People have debated um, why is obesity high? It's like we're eating more calories. That's probably not true. We looked at dietary patterns back in the 1970s, and people ate actually a little bit more calories back in the 1970s and 1950s and 60s. And then people thought, well, maybe it's the loss of manual labor. And that doesn't seem to correlate exactly either, because if you look now, the people that do a lot of manual labor actually have higher obesity rates than people that don't do manual labor today. So it doesn't seem like manual labor is really that much of a driver of and physical activity is a driver of obesity. Jogging and those kinds of activities became more popular actually in the 70s and 80s, and people didn't like go out and exercise really in the 50s that much. And exercise doesn't burn that many calories. It's very hard to exercise um, to lose a significant amount of weight. Its diet is usually the overriding factor. And so if it's not calories, what is it? It's a lot of things probably. There's probably some things in the environment that are disrupting our endocrine function, and there's a lot of hormones in the meat and dairy products that we eat. And there's several reasons, but probably, in my opinion and the opinion of a lot of other people, the one of the major factors driving the obesity is dietary sugar. And so if you look at this graph from a paper that was written several years ago about sugar consumption in the United Kingdom, if you look at this is sugar from the United Kingdom and the United States. If you look at in the 1970s, I think it's the 1700s, the amount of sugar that people ate per year was about 3 to 4 kilograms, so 6 to 8 pounds of sugar per year. And then it started rising in like the late 1800s. And so it seems like people can tolerate some increase in sugar intake, but at some point, the amount of sugar intake probably overwhelms our body's ability to deal with it. And you see, we have a fairly steep takeoff starting in the 1950s. This is when like TV dinners and processed food started becoming popular after World War II. And you see, this is the line of the obesity prevalence. So you see, it starts a very steep angle here in the 1970s. There was a climb before then. So the increased sugar consumption does correlate with that, but then at some point, it reaches a point where it overwhelms the body system and it goes like this. And if you look, this is the amount of sugar that people eat per year. And this was back in 2000. So 20 years later, it's like probably up here, and it's probably close to about 80 kilograms of sugar per year. So that means people eat almost their entire body weight in sugar per year. And that is a drastic difference than the amount of sugar people are eating. So it went from 3 to 4 kilograms to 70 to 80 kilograms of sugar per year. And that is a huge driver probably of obesity, is the amount of sugar. And the sugar is in places that you wouldn't think of. It's in like spaghetti sauce, it's in ketchup, it's in salad dressing. It's in everything. They put it in all processed foods. So it's not the number of calories, because not all calories are the same. If you eat um, if you eat like 100 calories of lettuce, there's so much fiber in the lettuce and roughage that your body is probably absorbing, you know, way less than half of the 100 calories. If you drink 100 calories of sugar water, you're probably absorbing 100% of that. So, the type of foods that people were eating before the 1970s was a lot more whole foods, like they were cooking at home and they were cooking from vegetables and eating those kinds of things. And the rise of factory farming and sugar and ultra processed foods is probably driving the obesity in America. And that's why the 150 pound average weight that cars are supposed to be, designed for does not hold true anymore. But I wouldn't get too worried about it because the 500 pounds that the Aptera is designed for is fairly similar to other two-passenger vehicles, which range from 400 pounds for the Miata and 600 pounds for a Boxster, and 500 pounds similar for the NSX. And then if you look at five passenger cars, they're all rated between 900 and 1,000 pounds, which means that 200 pounds, you're not going to fit the 200-pound people plus cargo in those vehicles. And most of us who have sedans like that have probably at some point, quote, gone over the maximum weight capacity of the vehicle. If you made a trip to the, airport or something, or went on a camping trip with a lot of people and filled the passenger capacity and the trunk, you've probably exceeded the maximum payload of the car already. And I know I've done that in my Ford Ranger when I got those pallets of flooring, and I know I've done that in my Clarity. I've definitely had five people in there plus a trunk that was completely full of stuff and groceries and things that I'm sure I've exceeded the 900 pounds that it's rated for. Um, so I think most of us are doing it, and the 500-pound capacity of the Aptera is in line with other two-passenger cars. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. Now, if you're a very large person, I know I see some people in the comments like, "Hey, I'm 6 foot, 4, and 280 pounds or 300 pounds." You're just a large person, and certain cars are probably better suited for larger people. And it doesn't mean there are large people that are extremely fit, and like football players and stuff. These guys are not obese. They're just extremely fit, and they're very heavy, and they're just big guys. Um, you're probably not going to fit in like a Mazda Miata or something like that. Okay. All right. So I hope that is clears up some information for people. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.